YouTube, it's Brian Phillips here, coming to you with a post-mortem on the Rare Bear. And when I say post-mortem, you guys have already seen the crash if you're watching this. The wing completely separated. There's no glue fixed to this part here. And the servo cables, let's see if I can get better light for you. I don't know if you guys can make that out. The servo cable was ripped off and pulled through here. So it actually got ripped through here. So really, if we want to talk about the damages, this is all intact. This feels like it maybe has a little bit of separation, but I don't know if that was maybe there before or not. This wing feels okay. This is good. This is good. A little bit of separation here. I think on something like that you could just tape it. I'll use this black tape for my decoration. And the only problem there is that you're going to be taping on top of a piece of tape. So, I mean, probably in this case, the best thing to do would be to go ahead and, I mean, honestly, the best thing to do would be to just go ahead and probably put a stronger piece of tape on there. So if you haven't already figured this out, I'm gonna fix this airplane right now, and I think it's gonna go really smooth. It's gonna be fairly easy. Not 100% sure about the servo cable yet, just because the nature of the location where it ripped. It's inside the servo, so I have to pull the servo out. That's not gonna be very fun. Just want to maximize the contact area there. Okay, so that's good enough to reattach that control surface. Then we can go ahead and reapply the black. It's actually pretty easy to do that when it's dismounted from the rest of the airframe there. So we'll just do that real quick. Let's cut that a little longer than we need. That film is really hard to get an edge on, so I always try to fold it over a little bit. This is just Hobby King stuff. Works really nice, actually. Super light too. It's called wing tape. Might kick myself later because I have to get in here and do something with this later, but for the moment this is the quickest and easiest way. And this plane has been surprisingly good, so I didn't want to let it die just because of an awesome high-speed landing without one wing. Be perfectly honest with you, it's been a pretty good plane, so I'm excited to improve its strength and probably go for mucilage on this. I didn't want to have to undo this tape because I feel like I had that done pretty good. But I'll just go ahead and do that for the sake of trying to get a good solid repair. And then this, I'll score the tape here. This is actually a duct tape. Let's see if I can get this. I doubt I'm going to be able to get it exactly right, but once you kind of peel up that lip, then it's done. It's always going to be loose. Okay, so we got to get a little damage on the lettering here. Can't say I'm super worried about that, but while we've got it nice and convenient, I suppose it sort of makes sense to take advantage of this time when it's going to be easier than trying to do it later on. Half the battle with these repairs is Is it easier to fix now, or is it easier to fix later when it's, you know, fully assembled? And honestly, I never know until I get into it. You end up making some mistakes here and there, but that's too big. Not too big a deal. Oh, geez, that was horrible. But if I were to try to peel that up, I would for sure take off the other decal. So I'll just score it. I don't know if it's time for a brand new blade or not. This one's got a little bit of CA on the tip, and there's a gouge in the tip. So yeah, so we'll just go to a new number 11 blade, an X-Acto number 11. These things are kind of the go-to in the hobby world. Even if you get into bigger planes and stuff, I suppose you probably still use this. Okay, so now watch the difference. See how much better that got. And just out of laziness, I'll just use it right there. Beautiful. Okay, great. So this spar is still well attached through the body here. So what I'm going to do is I'll go ahead and probably... I have to get the wires fixed first. Once the wires are fixed, then we're good. And let's just all be honest. The reason this plane crashed, it was clearly from going on 4S and just going really, really, really fast. And, you know, maybe not enough reinforcement, but, you know, it's not really, I don't know if it's a design flaw or anything like that. It's just, I think it's supposed to be flown on 3S. And just because the electronics will handle the 4S doesn't mean that everything else will hold up to the 4S. Configuration. It was really cool on 4S. I'll definitely agree to that. Okay, so now I got to dig down in here and get this wire, and we need to inspect where this this wire here. I'll probably just go ahead and eliminate this for now. We'll put that back on. It was so easy to do in the first place. It's where forceps come in really handy, so you can get into the spots where you can't physically fit your hands. Okay, so I'm pretty sure that is going here. Yeah, that's what's going on. Just gotta pull this. It's a Y splitter here, and we just need to make sure that we don't have any damage on the physical cable that goes out to the servo. It should be pretty obvious if there's a chafe in the wire or cut. Okay, so I have that loose now. So we should be able to reconfigure where that's going to go. It looks like it kind of pulled through this channel too, so I have to brace it and then yank it back the other direction, but I don't want to yank on this weaker part. So I'm going to support the cable down here, making sure not to pinch. We'll just take that back down to where it belongs. Okay, so it's in the middle now. Okay, perfect. So now we can actually push that down kind of flat where it was. And honestly, I think it's probably okay. Now we need to reattach those to the servo. We can do that on a number of different ways. One, you could dismount the servo, but I think we can get away with doing it while it's still in here. So we got to get the soldering iron hot. You may notice the motor flopping around, so maybe while the soldering iron's heating up, we can start taking a look at that. So we have a nice little handy hatch access now. The cowl broke. And this is just a little bit of hot glue separation just because the yanking of the motor. Crazy enough, that didn't do too bad at all. It just separated here. Now, a couple things to keep in mind is that when you consider whether or not a plane is going to end up being flight worthy again, Make sure the brushless motor spins free if it's brushless. If it's brushed, I don't know. Just depends on how much money you got on. Sometimes it's easier to just replace it at this exact moment. Since we have easy access to the screws, we'll go ahead and just check the screws for tightness. That is the wrong screwdriver for that application. Just go to a regular number 2. Yeah, we got a good purchase on those. I'm getting a little bit more tightness here, but I wouldn't argue that they were loose at all. Just trying to be nice to the cowling because I can't replace that component very easy. And then these just sit into kind of this little rail pockets. And so I'm sort of tempted to use hot glue, even though it's a little heavier, as opposed to a mucilage or a CA. Epoxy is just going to be... Epoxy would work. Okay, let's just make sure that that's out there. I know for sure that epoxy would work okay. And it would probably be the best option. But to be honest with you, when these things break like this is a belly lander. It's not impossible that I would catch a prop on the ground, and I kind of like the idea of having that get out of jail free card. I don't think this is going to break free from the plane unless I hit the prop into something like the ground or my hand. In which case, I would just prefer it break free. Okay, so there it is in its pocket. You can kind of see this was dragged on the ground a little bit here, but I think that'll just wipe clean. So we should be good. That's pretty much where it needs to be. We could actually fix the thrust angle now, except that it's going to be extremely difficult to get that exactly right at in the state the airplane's in. It's powerful enough that you could probably fly this plane without the wings, which is kind of how it landed. I'm sort of wondering if it would make better sense to just cut this, and then I could remove it to make it easier to glue this back together. I'm not sure if I want to do that though. I think for now we'll just go ahead and get glue slathered all over the contact points. So we're going to use mucilage. This stuff is derived from like some tree extract, I think. It works super good, and it's going to be foam safe on like 99% of the foams out there from what I understand. And usually the best way to get this applied is just, if you can get it on both surfaces, that's great. I will try to avoid getting it on the motor, obviously. You may get a little bit on the motor and it's not the end of the world, but you don't want to glue the motor, the part that's spinning, to the part that's mounted to the plane. That would not be good. You might catch your motor on fire in that condition. Okay, so we're just going to go a little bit heavy. And you see it's super stringy, so sometimes it's kind of hard to break it free from the tip, from the nozzle. And then the second step I'm going to do is I'm actually grab a Q-tip and I'm going to apply a little bit to where I expect these to touch down inside the fuse. And we can kind of let that glue start to activate. Try to avoid getting it all over everything like I'm doing right here. In fact, I don't know if I'm going to get the luxury of being able to let go of this. I may have to just slip it back in there. I'm sorry if I'm taking the camera off for a second, guys. I apologize. Okay, so here we go. So I got it slipped back in there. Now I gotta try to get it into its position. That stuff just boogers off if you get it quick enough. It's very difficult to prevent any glue from getting on the motor. I got a little bit of glue on there, but you want to do your best. Okay, so now I'm lifting the motor and pushing it back in, and I can see where I need to get a little bit more glue, and it's down here, right there. In that spot, a little bit more glue down there. Okay. So once you let that down into its spot, okay, so it's tacking up as I move it around, which is what we expect to happen. and we just want to kind of give it some encouragement to stay there. So all we're doing is, as we tack this up, I don't know if you guys can tell, but I'm pulling hard now. So once it's in that state where it's kind of tacky and you can barely pull it away, that's when you want to make sure you're not touching. Because like right now I have some glue that's spread onto the motor. Dang it. I was afraid of that. So you see, I don't know if you guys can make it out in that spot. I'm binding on something around the motor right now. Okay, so it is spinning, but I feel the pressure of whatever residual glue spinning around. So there's a trick for that, but the trick is going to be easily executed later, and it's going to be really hard to do right this second. It's going to basically consist of using kicker to try to clean off that glue. I just am trying to figure out if I'm rubbing the foam another way too. See, now that's free of the foam. So the hardest part for me in this application is just kind of making sure that I'm not binding with the frame of the plane. I think we're okay right now. So I'm just going to hold this for a minute, and then I will come right back to you guys. Alright guys, so I've got some more time sitting on that now. And I'm just taking a little bit of kicker. I got some onto the spinner, so I'm just going to wipe that off. That kicker will break down the adhesive qualities of that mucilage, and so then the glue will just come right off, even if it's already set up and it's been in place for some time. So you do need to be a little bit careful when you do this, because you could compromise your, where the glue compound is actually holding the motor in. So you want to be careful about the way you go about doing this. The other thing too to keep in mind is, as you make the decision whether or not you want to try to take that extra mucilage off, you may find it easier to just run the motor up a little bit. If it's not actually binding the motor, it could be of no consequence, but if you're binding it at all, you could actually stop the motor from moving, and that can create some excessive heat on your electronic speed control. So I'm just using this here because it's easy to get to. And all I'm going to do is just use this to get that little bit of residual mucilage wet. Okay, so once it's wet, then I'm going to switch my hands here so that I can do this a little easier. And I'll just kind of work the motor back and forth and just kind of spin the Q-tip. Sorry, I can't really show you what's going on because it's behind the cowling. And once you get a little bit on there, you can actually go in there with your finger and just, the glue will kind of tack off. It will tack off. In fact, I might just try to put the kicker right onto my fingertip. It's actually a little easier to do that. So I'll probably go that route for now. Oh, there we go. I got a good angle. Gosh, I didn't realize there was so much mucilage that got spread across on that. If I would have known how much there was, I would have tried to spin it onto a Q-tip while it was still sort of not cured all the way. Okay, so once you get a little bit of mucilage on there, or kicker, accelerant, then you can more or less move on to the next spot. And that will take that stuff out of there actually. that would imbalance your motor too, so you'll want to definitely get that stuff off of there. You can't just leave it be. Looks like there's some overspray too. And the overspray, of course, is from mostly the orange color. Not really sure why the black didn't. Oh, because I didn't do as much black on there. That's right. So now there will come a time where those little boogers and things will probably get flung off the motor. But I guess I'd rather not leave that to chance. See that one there? That one's really nasty. So, dang it, get out of there. Okay, so turn on the compressor. Fresh Q-tip. That should be enough. There it is. I see it popping up. See, that's the sort of weird crap that you run into when you're working on these little aircraft. Like, who would have thought a booger would literally get into the motor? I didn't. Okay, so my soldering iron is like screaming hot. So we're gonna have to get moving on that here pretty soon. So this mucilage is usually really, really good and really easy to work with. This is probably not one of the easier ways to use it, but just because it's in a blind spot, any type of glue is going to be awkward to use. CA would be super, super easy in here, because you could more or less CA and then just run the kicker and it would hold it in place. The problem is you don't want a brittle connection to the motor, because if there's any vibration at all. Okay, so as you can see, it's spinning free now. Alright guys, that was a little more tedious than I expected it to be, sorry. Now this needs to eventually get repaired too. And I like the way the outside of this looks, but I guess secondary to the looks, I would say that the looks are going to be, of course, secondary to the performance. I feel like there's something else rubbing in there, and I got to find out where it is. I think I might see it. Gosh, of course, I'm not going to be able to reach it. I think it's just a little bit more of that mucilage residue. You got a little bit out of there. So one thought I had was to actually back this material with a piece of paper towel and then just CA the crap out of it. And that would be one option that'd probably work, but I just don't think it's kind of the same grounds we were talking about with the vibration on the bottom there. This I can actually take off with Windex, which I think we'll try real quick. That is cooking, I realize. And I'm sort of reluctantly doing this now just so I can kind of go in some semblance of order. As I see stuff, I'll just fix it quick. Oh, that wing tape, by the way, I don't know if I showed you guys this in a video. I used an iron to actually flatten that down some to get that nice curve. Worked really well. I was not sure it was going to do that. Okay, so we got most of that stuff off. It's certainly not perfect, but I think there's a little bit of a rub mark there that's just going to be there. Not the end of the world in this case, obviously. We'll just get that back where it goes. Okay, so in order to fix this, I could also use cotton. I think cotton would give me a little bit better surface area for contact there. And then I could try to use tape. Tape is probably going to be the hardest to get a nice finished look, but it will give me something to hold it together temporarily. Why don't we try that first, even though it's going to be one of the more challenging things to do on this repair. This piece of tape will be wide enough. It's just run-of-your-mill packing tape. I think it's a duct tape brand. I've been happy with it. It's just, honestly, I didn't go out and pick it for this application. I just have it around. usually with tape like that, they're, you know, you get what meets your specific application, and it's not a brand specific thing, but if you all have a special brand that you like, by all means, do what you got to do to support those brands. Okay, so this is went on there a little smoother than I expected it might attach. But now I've got this kind of looseness up here, so I think I'll just do a second piece. And then from the back side, we could try to tape the inside. I just didn't think I'd be able to make the angle. Okay, so this one piece is probably a little bit too long, so we'll trim that in half. And that's just gonna. Remember, being that this is a belly lander, there's quite a little bit more wear and tear on the front end of these planes. In my experience, I mean, I know honestly, if you belly land it and you keep the nose up a little bit, you could probably subdue some of that and kind of drag the tail into the structure. I mean, let's get real. It's a belly lander. It's not going to last forever anyway. Okay, so now that, I want to try to get a piece of tape in. I think I can do it with tape. That would be the preferred method in this case, I guess. CA and paper towels sometimes works really nice, but it's really hard to control where you get it. I've used CA and paper towels on all sorts of different planes and had really good luck. The only thing I'm kicking myself on with this is I could probably use masking tape that's really tacky to do this step too. This stuff is pretty expensive and heavy. Masking tape might work better for this. But also there's going to be some heat involved. The masking tape would dry out the paper backing. So I'm wondering, maybe this plastic will end up being the better choice. Okay, so I'm just kind of running my thumb down the contours here. Just really making sure to get good contact all the way down the inside. And it feels sturdy. I mean, it's not as sturdy as it was before, but it wasn't ever very sturdy because this was damaged from the shipping, remember guys? But just keeping in mind that does hold the canopy on. I think I gotta readdress the motor, make sure the motor mount's free, which it is now. I kind of pushed that down a little bit. I think what I need to do is probably do a swath of tape around here to be on the safe side. Just throw that anywhere. Just throw that anywhere, people. Okay, we're gonna clean this tip. We're being really mean to the soldering iron right now. Okay, so we're actually going to trim this down width-wise. The width is too wide right now, because if I go all the way wide right now, I think we're going to have a nasty ripple. Okay, so I'll tape it this way. I'm just pushing this down tight on the surface, and I want to get a good 1 1/8 inch, maybe somewhere in there, worth of width. And I'll just cut it nice and square, and then over here I'll cut it back where I can keep the oils from my skin off of it as much as possible. Okay, so we'll try to make this look as uniform as possible. So I want to make the middle stick first. Ooh, don't peel it up, Brian. See, it followed the contour because this is not a perfect cylinder, of course. I'd hope that would go a little bit wider all the way across, all the way here, but that's fine. So now I'll just take and trim this tape. Alright, great. So that'll give us a little extra security on the canopy, because remember, the canopy slips under this area here. So you want to make sure that it's not going to pop off while we're going fast. Okay, and then this is not real desirable, having that flopping around. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm actually really not so sure I should be doing this, but I'm going to do it anyway. You know those times when you're like, you want to do the right thing, but you're thinking sometimes doing the right thing might be cause more grief than it's going to do good? Happens to me all the time. Okay, so I'm going to just slide this down here, you know, like no good deed goes unpunished sort of thing. Okay, so now I'm going to spin this, try to get that mucilage spread around a little bit. And then take off some of the excess because we don't want that to catch on the canopy itself as we go to insert that. Each time we're putting the canopy on, that's what I'm actually most concerned about. Okay, see how that gets tacky? I'm trying to get the light over my shoulder. Where can I get light? There we go. Okay, so we're gonna just do this. Okay, there we go. There's some super tackiness, but that's going to be in front of where the nose adapts in here. But you see, all you got to do is just rotate it. Once you get a little bit of tack on there, it will stick to itself really well. See that? See that, guys? And then you can take it out that way. You don't have to use mucilage necessarily. Or, I'm sorry, you don't have to use kicker. You can use kicker, though. Kicker would work okay for this. I've got a little bit of kicker on this, so I'll just run that for the residual. Yeah, we're golden. See, and then this will not have such a strong propensity to release. Okay. The next and very important step of reattaching the servo. I do have my radio system down here. And so here in a minute we'll go ahead and, you know, test all that. We tested everything else right after the very fast landing with one wing missing. And it's also verify that we're still free, and we are. Okay, so we're going to dive right into that. I'm noticing some mucilage has bridged here, so I'm just going to spin this down there to get that out of there. Perfect. Check for freedom, still free. Alright. Alright, so we gotta try to gain access to this servo so that we can repair it. Everything else is, I would say, we're really pretty close. The canopy didn't get any damage that I recall or know about yet. Of course, we'll go over it with a fine-tooth comb. So we got 4 screws here. Need a pretty small screwdriver to take this out. So I got this little really dinky one. Whatever size that's supposed to be there, guys. Okay, very good. Let's go ahead and release these screws. There was like really long, which is funny. Oh, these ones kind of have felt like a keeper on there. I'll grab a magnet. It's nice if you have a magnet, and that way you can stick your screws on the magnet and you don't have to worry about chasing them because these things are so small. Now my ideal is going to be to repair this servo. If that doesn't come to fruition, then we'll go ahead and replace it. It's not going to be an overly expensive thing. And I have made up in my mind that if that's what it comes to, it's not a big deal. I'm fine with it. But I'd prefer to go ahead and save it if we can. Alright, so we can pull this off. Oh, look at that. That's going to be super easy. In fact, I don't even think I'm going to pull that glue off. I'll just like fold it around. Nah, I'll pull it out of the way. It'll be easier. So we know that glued part goes on the bottom. Okay, so when soldering these super small connections, you do have to be really careful about overheating your workpiece. And so make it so that you can be comfortable. Because if you're not comfortable, I guarantee you, you're not going to get it done. Or at least it's not going to be right. Okay, so I'm just going to take and trim these back. Make sure I get to some fresh copper. Copper meaning the conductors inside of the individual wires. It's braided. And so you want to expose just a little bit. Not hardly any, in fact. Now this is a silicone rubber that's covering these leads, so you're not going to be able to just shrink those back like you could with some of the servo wires that are out there on the market. Okay, so this tip is kind of pissed at the moment because we had it on for so long. And I feel a little bit bad. That's not very good for your servo or for your soldering iron. Okay, so get a little bit of solder to help bridge. Come in here and let that tin just suck back into the wire. Okay, see how it's shrinking back a little bit of that silicone wire? We'll trim that up here in a second. Okay. And if you do this on your dining room table, one of two things needs to be true. Make sure your wife doesn't notice. And don't touch the table with a soldering iron. She may be in trouble. And don't blame me if you get in trouble. Alright, so I'm going to hold these things together like this. Trim them back. Alright, so now my objective is to have this wire within close enough proximity that I can have nice stress-free connection. So I'll have to actually have this pretty tightly folded here. I'm going to deal with one wire at a time just so it's easier. I could use forceps for this. I'm not sure which one's going to work better. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, so I'm going to grab this orange. And I'm just touching. I mean, just barely touching. Okay, so orange goes on the top. So I'm actually going to just kind of point that where I want to put it. And actually I got about twice as much copper exposed as I need. And this is where you gotta, for me it's like more the merrier, right? I'm gonna go ahead and take about half of that off. Just barely any. And you don't want to separate these too far back, but you could and then just re-glue them. Make sure you start with a nice clean tip. Alright, so I'm going to go at a little bit of an angle there. Make sure I don't touch my carbon fiber spar. Okay, so that one's attached. We're going to let that totally cool for a couple seconds. Okay, nice and shiny connection. Some people would want to switch to a finer tip, like something like this, except this one's in really bad shape, so that would be probably not an undesirable thing to do. But in my case, I'm going to just do it this way for now. It's going to be very difficult to do this middle one. It's not going to be fun at all. I'm just kind of realizing I need something heavy to put onto this so it doesn't move. Okay, so we need red, then brown. Okay, so we got the brown one out. And we got red out. So this is a fairly small servo to do this on, but you know, I'll be honest with you guys, it's, for me, this is only hard because I'm filming it, because I have a camera that's sticking out in front of my head. I don't know if you guys have ever seen this, but I'll show you real quick here. So there it is. So as you can see, it sticks out in front of my head, and so it's super annoying. And that means I have to have my body in kind of a weird situation. but I can see if things are out of focus. Most of the time I catch it quicker than I used to with my old setup. Okay. Trick of the day. Chunk L solder. Alright, that's probably fine there. So then we'll go down and we'll do the brown. Ah, see, we're not fine there. Dang it. And obviously we're going to test all this crap before we do any flying or anything of the sort. So we'll get that tip nice and covered. Gosh dang it. There, I got it that time. Okay. I hope you could see half of that, guys. Promise you, this is some of the hardest stuff to film, just tight quarters. Okay, I did get that one. Now, normally at this point, you would start putting it together, but I'm wanting to probably test this before I get too much further. So let's do that. With the radio turned on, just grab a battery. This happens to be a 3S pack. It's not the size I would normally fly with, but doesn't matter. We're on the rear bear, throttle cuts on. Okay. Waiting for it to initialize. Elevator. No rudder. And of course throttle's gonna work, but I will test that in a little bit later step. So we can unplug that battery, shut off the radio. So our next step is to go ahead and secure to protect the strain that could be placed on that wire. And usually the easiest way to do that is to just do like a drip of CA or something. Trouble is, I also need to make sure that my wires are kind of like going to fit through the outlet of the servo body here. So I'm just going to kind of push those through. Okay, so I think we're good there. So it's kind of hard to tell exactly because yeah, I think we got it that time. I think we're good now. Okay, so now we can take this and start reassembling it. There's a little piece of black plastic there that's making me just take pause. Oh, it's clear. Okay, so that keeps the pot away from the wiring, if I recall. The potentiometer. If you don't know what a pot is. Potentiometer. Son of a gun. These little turds are sometimes a little tricky to get started. If you try to put them on a screwdriver and you're having failure with that, sometimes it's easier to take the magnet and stick it to the screwdriver. A lot of times that'll give you enough hold to be able to hold that on there. This is a magnetic tip on this screwdriver, if I recall. But see, in my case, it's probably easier to just pick them up and do it. So guys, the next step for this plane, of course, is going to be to make sure the thing flies, but I know I kind of told you guys I was going to probably do a rudder mod, and I still think I'm going to do a rudder mod. I'm just not 100% sure I'm going to do it right this second or not. I think by rights I should make that a separate video to do a rudder mod, because this is going to be a long video anyway. They're all long anymore, it seems like. Which I know there's some people that don't really have a big problem with that, and then there's other people who do. And for those of you who do, it's called fast forward. I never did quite understand that in the YouTube world. Yeah, it's YouTube, guys. If you don't like the way somebody else does it, just do it better. And there's a lot of people that do a lot of things on YouTube. They do a really good job. Okay, so this is gonna, that should get us almost back to square one, which is kind of cool. We still have a little bit to go, so we're just gonna get that done as quick as possible. I just noticed those little ripples there. I wonder if I need to put some heat on there. Okay, so now that we have that done, we have this strange time where we have a decision to make on, I'm gonna kick myself, I think, but I'm gonna do it anyway. In the meantime, I'm gonna go ahead and put some of this mucilage onto this tail and this little thing, because I don't want that separating like that. I don't know if that was a result of the accident or if it was just kind of like a poor bond to begin with or what, but I'm just afraid I'm gonna forget to do it. Okay, so we'll just let that sit. That's Windex, not kicker. Okay, great. So now we have to make a decision on how we're going to manage the reattachment to the fuse. So the first step, of course, is going to be to pull the wire back through so that we can get that repositioned in a safe spot inside the fuse. Of course, we needed as much slack as we could get just to make the repair as reasonable as possible for easiness. Slip that in there and just kind of let it wind itself up wherever it goes. Not super critical where that ends up, as long as it's in the, not in a pinch point or something. Alright, so now we have to figure out, do we want to try to reinforce this with something? And I guess honestly my initial assessment was that, yeah, we should probably reinforce it with something. But then I start thinking about it, I'm like, where am I going to reinforce it? Because this wing is added to the fuse. It's not like, the spar is not one single piece because there's dihedral in this wing. I don't have it totally square, by the way. So if I do that, I'm thinking that the reinforcement could actually be superficial reinforcement, like a piece of tape. I can't really get that much reinforcement here, but I could get a little bit here, down and out, and down and out. I kind of like that idea better. Boy, that did turn out good, didn't it, that decal? Really like it. I think that's what we're going to do, guys, because if I go crazy trying to put a bunch of carbon fiber in here, I think it's just gonna throw off the performance of the plane. Similarly, you don't want the wing to come off, because that throws off the performance of the plane too. I think a little bit of glue on here would really help it to stay in place, possibly. Okay, so we're gonna put some mucilage on here. I don't know if you guys have figured out, I'm quite fond of mucilage. It's a really good product. Okay, so I'm actually going to do this the best way possible, okay, instead of just like the easiest way. Sometimes I do things the easiest way, sometimes I do them, you know, the bare minimum for the project. In this case, I'm going to try to do it the best I can possibly do. Spend as much effort as I can, because this is kind of an important step. If this wing didn't have the dihedral, I would be all over, putting some carbon fiber reinforcements all the way across this. I just don't see how I'm going to pull it off. Okay, so not the one with kicker on it, just the one from earlier. All I'm doing is I'm just kind of activating this glue by exposing it to the air and spreading it out and stuff. It's going to make it super tacky. Kind of like my jokes. Okay, so just let that kind of do its thing for a minute. Get it nice and tacky. And then I want to just stick it in the hole. Oops. This is a bamboo skewer. Just going to kind of force down this wire. Jeez. You know what? I wonder if I could get away with just doing a bamboo skewer there. Nah, I don't think it's going to add that much, though, for strength. Okay, so now that I have that wing somewhat attached, I'm going to pull it back and push it forward. I'm going to pull it back and push it forward. Push it and pull it. Push it and pull it. Eventually, it's going to get to the point where, like, I can't physically do it without breaking the foam apart from itself. See? Look how strong that is, guys. I'm going to give you the 100% guarantee that that thing is stronger than it was factory. That is also heavier than it was factory, too. And it was additionally more expensive, because I know I used more glue than they did. So it's not without compromise. You know, if you have like a $10 budget to build a plane, then I suppose there is going to be a limit to how much glue you can use and still stay in business. I want these companies to stay in business. I don't want to just buy one plane from somebody. Okay, so you remember I was telling you the rule of thumb about keeping your tip clean? It applies here too, especially the mucilage. That stuff's a pain to work with once it gets stuck on something. And you don't always want to put kicker on the surface because you might compromise your joint. Okay, so this has kicker in it. I'm going to just get rid of it so I don't make a mistake. And the reason I'm kind of cleaning up is so I can let this activate for a minute. Okay, so we're just going to squish this in kind of tight. Then we're going to come back here again and we're just going to take this fresh virgin Q-tip, just work down the surface here. Okay, so just like this, just kind of pulling the surface stuff off. Yes, you can actually leave that there and it won't hurt anything, but it just looks ugly, like really ugly. See, once you kind of get it tacked up, it will pull the mold release off of the foam. It's just crazy. It'll get like super strong. Okay, so now we'll push this back in, and I'm probably going to have to tape this one so that it stays in position as the mucilage kind of sets up in the next couple hours. It sets up really quick, but that doesn't mean it's 100% set up all the way throughout the batch. So I'm going to go ahead and get off of here what can get off. Okay. And there's a certain amount of stuff that's on the surface there that I think I'm probably just going to tolerate for the moment. And then I'll come back and get it with kicker. Just wipe it with kicker that's on a rag, because I want this to be strong. It is kind of an important, critical portion of the aircraft here. Alright, so now, in order to hold the wing on, go for something like this. Okay, so what do we got? Like 45 minutes worth of work, or excuse me, 52 minutes or so on this project. I mean, an hour for repairs on a crash of that level of significance with a complete separation of a main wing. To be honest with you guys, I mean, I'm not saying it's good that it happened. I'm also not admitting that I did anything wrong. I just kind of flew it in a straight line. I was pulling out of a full speed pass on 4S. So I mean, yeah, it was pushing the limits and everybody knew it. But I don't really fault the manufacturer for that. I do fault the manufacturer for the damage in shipping. That was asinine stupidity. They could have done a lot better with that. Oh no! We're out! Son of a gun, that's not going to tape very good. I'll have to use one of my other 400 pieces of tape. Yeah. I like that green tape, guys. That stuff's awesome. It's also awesomely expensive. This stuff's dirt cheap. But it'll take off finish from your plane, so just be willing to deal with that. Okay, so I'm just trying to make sure the dihedral is as spot on as I can get it to recreate the factory flight performance, which is pretty decent. I mean, it wasn't perfect, but you guys saw it. It was pretty good, given the price nature of this plane. Give yourself a tail on these too, so that you don't have to fight it. I didn't on this, and I'm gonna kick myself later. I'm sure I will. Okay, so that's pretty good. Alright, so then down here we'll just leave that be, and we'll just kind of see how this all turns out here in a few hours. Looks like we got a little bit of something or another there. Obviously we'll have to do some white, this is duct tape, to cover up those areas, exposed areas. And I think I'm going to do some clear tape to reinforce the wing. So maybe I'll just do maybe I'll take off this tape, and then I'll just do a big piece of duct tape that will actually, except we got the Navy symbol there. I might be able to take this off with a big piece of clear tape and then stick it back down. I could also print Navy on the Cameo. Woo! That was kind of scary. Just fixing that N has been bothering me for some time. Pretty much ever since I did it, because I was trying to be in a big hurry. Like always. Which is funny, you wouldn't think that from watching my 2-hour-long videos. Alright guys, so we'll come back. Maybe I'll just do a small piece, whatever it takes to get here. Cover up the whole thing, peel that off, and then I can do this piece here. Run it right on the leading edge. Right on the leading edge, maybe that's what we'll do. Alright. Coming back in a little bit, guys. YouTube, we're back after this glue had a chance to dry. The mucilage that's holding the wing on now. So we can go ahead and take off this tape. I expected I was going to come back to this after just a few minutes, and I actually came back to it the next day. So it should be nice and set up and ready to handle some mechanical load. You can see it's kind of poofing out there a little bit. See? I'll show you how to deal with that real quick if you haven't already worked with it before. See, we got one little mar point here too. Other than that, we did really good. I glued this off camera because that was kind of a simple thing. I just re-glued that spot. So this stuff, I've just got some forceps here. You could use regular pliers or whatever. It's just forceps work a little bit easier sometimes. I'm just going to gently lay this down. Okay, so I'm just picking them out. We'll use just regular, kind of like a thin tip needle nose plier. Works really nice to get this stuff out. It's easier if you can get it out of there before it's poking out of the glued joint, but that stuff will get harder with time, but as you can see, it's very sturdy. I suspect if a wing were to break off, it'd be this one now. But I'm actually going to address that with our reinforcements that we talked about. So basically just I got a little bit of damage there too. So once we get this done, then we can go ahead and get it back up in the air. Make sure the flight performance is still good. Probably not going to go for 4S right away. Okay. Pulling hard on it. There's no thought of breaking free. There's a couple of gaps in here. And of course we got this little cut here. Probably wouldn't have to do anything, but I don't want to have a big open wound like that, so I'll just fill this in with some gap filling CA, and we'll just go at it with a little bit of kicker. One spritz of kicker, and then we'll just fill in that hole even further. That'll make a nice smooth spot for us then. And this one back here is more of just a little mar, so it's not actually an open wound. Alright, we're good there. Then this spot here, I'm actually going to peel this tape off altogether. I'm going to peel this tape back. I'll probably just end up going ahead and taking it off most of the way back because I want to reinforce this spot here. Hopefully prevent having this wing come off under a high G load or stupid maneuver by me. Usually a stupid maneuver to avoid a tree or something like that. Yeah, see, I don't think they got very much glue into this spot here. So I'm actually just going to let this gap filling CA run down and just kind of fill that crack there. I'll just run up and down this a little bit. I can actually see the glue in this joint, so I'm less concerned with this, and I'm less concerned with going out all the way. Okay, so we'll just let that run down in there a little bit. Then we'll give it just a little bit of kicker. That's kind of a lot of kicker, actually. We want to set that chemical reaction happening so it doesn't get everywhere. Be a huge mess. It's already kind of getting set up on the edge. Okay, so here goes nothing. We'll just fill this up the last little bit. Might as well. Just basically giving you more contact area between the foam and this wing. This is dry, so we'll just run it along there. Getting a little bit of CA out when we do that, so that means we need just a little bit more kicker. And also that kicker might take off some of that overspray too, which is kind of nice. See, it's taking off the overspray. Okay, so the other thing is with this kicker is you're going to make for poor contact with your tape And that's our next thing we're going to do, is to tape this area for a structural reinforcement, which sounds kind of funny, but you don't think of tape as being a structural reinforcement. But in this case, on such a light plane, it wouldn't have taken much to keep this wing attached to the plane. And after landing, you would have noticed that there was a problem. Well, I suppose we should probably do the other side the same way. Now when we have our next catastrophic failure, it's going to be even more catastrophic because it's going to rip the fuselage apart. So I'm just going to let this run down in. I don't know if you guys can make that out, but kind of letting it fill that spot up. And then here I'll do the same. I'll just kind of go over this. You do want to be a little bit careful here because you're going to undermine the performance of the mucilage. So I'm going to actually go a little bit more sparing on this. And then I'm probably going to use my other method for putting the kicker on. I'll show you that here in a second. It's not really anything too fantastically complicated. So this is going to kind of seal that surface there. And you can actually, a Q-tip will almost start to set that kicker too, or not kicker, CA. So the other method I use that's typical for me is I just take this out and then I'll just run that drip from the tail end of the spigot or spout or whatever you want to call that thing. And this will help to control where it ends up. Oh, son of a gun, that stuff's expensive. I just spilled a ton of it too. That was probably like $7 worth of kicker. Not quite that bad, but this is $6, so I spilled like half of it. Alright, give me a second, I'm going to clean that up. Alright guys, so we cleaned up the spilled kicker. Now we just gotta finish up this last little bit. Every time I fill up this bottle, more than about halfway full, I always spill it. So I didn't used to have that problem when I just used a sprayer, but to be honest with you, the problems that I had before were they were different than what I have now. Just ran out of paper towels, so I was cleaning that up too. But I think that the trade-offs have been good with the occasional spill. And by the way, when you get into this hobby, you'll find that there's a point where you start going through enough kicker and glue that it's beneficial to get the larger, more bulk sizes. And I've been there for a while. You guys might not be there. If you get into this and you're kind of hot and heavy on it and then you give up on it in 6 weeks, probably not a good idea to buy the big sizes of everything, of course. But everything is just so much cheaper if you can buy it in bulk, just like anything else you do. Okay, so everything's back in order there. And that's the thing I like about kickers. You know, that keeps you from getting stuff all over you while you're working. Okay, so now that we have that restored to like or better than new condition, I had debated about possibly doing a little bit more up here, but I don't think I want to do that. And you can see there's obvious drawbacks to using CA in that it's doesn't give as much, and so it's usually a good idea to use that mucilage when you're just trying to hold two surfaces together and you want to have a little bit of give there. But the CA is going to give you that nice smooth finish at the end. Actually, I need a little bit more glue there. I just noticed that it had pulled back down in there. This medium CA is actually usually a little thinner than this. It is a gap filling medium CA. Foam safe medium CA. But in my case, this just happens to have not been used a lot in very recent past, so it gets a little bit thicker. So you may not find that it's as thick when you first get it, and that's okay. I actually prefer it a little thinner. Alright, so now I need to wipe that down with alcohol. This is just medical grade alcohol. It's not actually the isopropyl or like an electronic grade alcohol. I just use this bottle because I like it better than the plastic, the clear plastic one. Get a little bit more residue with this than you would with the isopropyl stuff, I think. But it's worth it for me, for what I'm doing. Take a little bit of that overspray off too. That's kind of nice. Now I think I am going to go ahead and, just for the sake of weight, I'll probably go ahead and peel off this cover that I've got on this one over here, this servo, because I can just do one big piece, one contiguous piece. See if I can get some of that overspray with this. Yeah, that's not going to do anything. This tape, I've been really happy with it so far. I think I got it like Home Depot or something like that. And it's fairly heavy still though, because it's a duct tape. But I really like it because it's white. And surprisingly enough, I've had trouble finding masking tape or like a wing tape like this that's white. That stuff wouldn't be very, very dark or opaque. You'd be able to see through it a lot, I think, which is probably why they don't offer it. This stuff is extremely heavy compared to a clear plastic tape, but we can serve two functions with this now. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and, I got a black mark on there. That's not very cool. This alcohol, we'll see if we can take whatever that is off of there. I think it's just the adhesive. Okay, so we don't want to go too crazy on this yet. Okay, so navy is my mark where I don't want to go past. It does seem like we're going to be able to cover the whole thing. That's pretty cool. So we'll just see if we can get this to go. Oh. I don't know if it's going to cover up on this side. Yeah, it's close enough. I think we'll get it. I need a little something I can use to work this tight into that joint there. Okay, that'll work. And then this is going to give us a little bit of mechanical strength, but it's super tacky, so it'll keep the edges down, which is one thing that I didn't have good success with this clear tape, because it's got these little bumps and air bubbles. I don't know how strong that's going to end up being ultimately. I could probably take a super sharp knife and try to score that. And see if that allows those pieces to kind of find home position. We'll see. I doubt it. Okay, so obviously we need to do a strip there. I'm not sure if I want to do any more. I might do a little bit more here just to pretty it up. That spot is going to probably catch debris if I don't do something about it. I don't want to add a ton of weight, but I do want to kind of give it a chance of success here. As you can see from me peeling it from my fingers like that, it's a very strong tape. That's why I like this stuff. So we'll see how that does. Just kind of like a patch. You're not going to be able to see it in flight at all. I don't think it's going to peel up during flight. And then this little damage point, actually maybe I should use this. If you happen to think about it, if you apply this in the right order, start from the back and work your way forward so that your leading edge gets, blocks the ability for that tape to get peeled up in high speed flight, especially on these crazy fast planes. It's going to be fairly heavy to do this, but I think I'm going to do this. I'm going to try this. See if I can get by doing this. I don't want to screw up my otherwise nice line here, so we'll see if I can chase this down like this. Okay, so now I need to cut this. It's always a challenge to cut tape like this and try to keep it nice and neat. Okay, so this will give us the ability to fold it around the leading edge, but I think I might not have gone far enough forward. We'll see here in a second. See, this is like a reinforced vinyl tape, so it's got a little bit of give to it. Last thing you want is for this to unleash during flight and have that come up like this. Okay, so you see that nasty little edge there? I think I'm just going to take the really sharp X-Acto and go around it. And we'll just hope we don't take the paint off, which is more than likely going to happen. That's where doing 475 coats comes in handy. See? Pulled the paint off. Son of a gun. That's alright. See? Took it right off. I use this International Orange. International Orange right there. This stuff works pretty good for this touch-up. Like using these little sticks that I use to mix up the paint. Jeez, that one's dried out really bad. But lucky for us, we only need just a very, very small amount of it. Okay, good. You're probably thinking to yourself, are you kidding me? You just did that? Yes, I did. It's probably a huge waste of time. So now the next side we got to do is exactly the same on the other wing. Then we should be pretty much ready to fly this thing again. So just cutting at a very small angle, very shallow angle. Try to get that to line up with the edge of my paint. And then when we get up close to the edge of the orange here, we can cut that back. Oh no! Stuck to my blade. This side I'm less concerned with because I didn't have the nasty edge. So this will wrap that leading edge. The plane is going to be a little bit heavier now, obviously. which is certainly not a desirable aspect of this. I'll be honest, I'm not really sure there's a way to get around it when you have a repair like this. I mean, it's certainly better than having it in 4 pieces. Alright, cool guys. So, next step, I think, is going to be to basically pick up the garbage and get out there and fly it. I'm not 100% sure if this is going to happen today. I really want it to happen today. But as with other things in life, son of a gun, sometimes the last priority is the thing you really would like to do. And let's see what it looks like with the canopy. And this was something I added outside of the video, the context of the video, when I was doing my build or my repaint job, was that tape right on the leading edge. That tape helps you to get that in. So there you have it, guys. So now, once we've re-evaluated the flight performance, then we can make a decision as to whether or not we think it's going to be worth... oh look, guys, another gouge. One more gouge. Let's fix this gouge too. This one should be pretty easy. I'm just going to do it with a little bit of CA here. And then let that set for a second, and then we'll come back in with one more drip. Of course, that's not the lightest method you could use. There's a million different ways to skin this cab, but that's the easiest way I've found. And then now that that's done, try to keep that away from your decals, the dripping kicker, because that'll make a really poor bond of what had been a good bond. So now that we have that done, we can flip this over. I think we still have alcohol in there. I can smell it. So I'm just going to wipe right here. We'll just do one little piece of white tape, which we just threw a little bit away. Of course, I can't get back to it. This is going to be a super, super small piece. Yeah, that's a 3M branded tape. It works really, really good. Okay, there we go. Almost looks a little bit like a panel line, which is kind of cool. Alright guys, there you have it. It's certainly not perfect, but it's a lot better than 4 pieces. I'm really excited to see this thing fly again. You know what? I'm just going to redo this real quick because I hate the way that looks. I'd rather have it square because then it could pass as a panel line. Cool. Alright guys. I'll have a flight video for you as soon as we can. Thanks a lot for watching. Thanks for following along. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Check the links down in the description. Help support our channel. If you buy stuff there, you're going to buy it anyway. And come back for more.